Okay. Well, here, I'm trying another stream out. I was inspired today because I kind of got into it with a YouTuber online and maybe I want to do a little post-mortem and kind of think about it and get my thoughts together. I was watching a video from Scott Carney, who's an investigative journalist, and I really like him. I think he does great work and he has a lot of interesting things to say. Unfortunately, this one was about the telepathy tapes, and he, his attitude toward the telepathy tapes was definitely very woo. He does have a bit of he is involved with Wim Hof and Andrew Huberman and a lot of folks that are kind of on the edge of science, I guess we could call it. And I'm okay. I don't get upset when I disagree with people, but he said something that kind of upset me, and I had to respond. Um, it was mainly about the hard problem of consciousness. And to get everybody up to speed, well, what is the hard problem of consciousness? This is a problem defined by a philosopher, Chalmers, in 1994. And it essentially says that it is impossible to have a purely physical theory of how consciousness is formed. Now, that's bunk. To me, that's just nonsense. Why? There's no good reason. And I see this kind of derived. I've been spending a lot of time on our consciousness, and there's a lot of philosophers there. So I'm coming from a science background. And when I start talking to philosophers, they have their own lingo. They have their own jargon, their own history, and everything. And I've been working to learn what it is so that I can communicate better with people who are coming at intelligent behavior from a different angle. And so far, my experience is very positive. Most of the philosophers of consciousness that I have talked to are accomplished and intelligent and polite and nice people to talk to. Some of them are not, but as I'm learning more and more, the lay of the land, I think it's getting better. And one thing that I've noticed is that this people who believe in the hard problem of consciousness generally call themselves idealists. They think that basically ideas are good enough. You don't need hard empirical physical evidence. And people who believe there is a physical answer to consciousness, they call themselves physicalists or sometimes materialists or functional. Philosophy has so many isms. This is an important thing. If you want to talk to philosophers, you need to come to the game with some isms in your pocket. That way, you could say, somebody says, "Oh, you're just a physicalist." And you'd be like, "I prefer to be called a materialist." And then you could sort of throw that back. You could do competing isms with each other. And that's how they talk. That's the song of their people. And I can get on board. Once you learn what everything means, it does sort of make sense. It isn't just a lot of words, though people can abuse that. Pseudo intellectuals can throw terms around to confuse you. But from what I can tell, the philosophy of consciousness crowd has rigorous definitions for all these, and they do have meaning. And if you learn them, you can have really good conversations. Now, what I wanted to say was, let me pull this up. So, a long-standing debate in philosophy is rationalism versus empiricism. And I'm starting to think that idealism, people who believe in the hard problem of consciousness, and empiricism, people who don't. Um, and again, if I say that, there's philosophers out there going, well, actually, it's there are many. I'm giving a very general overview. It does get a lot more detailed than this. I don't want to oversimplify it, but I just want to do a quick introduction, and I'm still learning. So I see a lot of this going back to this rationalism versus empiricism, and this is a debate in philosophy that goes back basically to Aristotle, as far as I can tell. Plato was very rationalist. He believed that if you think it, that's plenty good enough. You don't need any evidence to back it up. In fact, I'm somewhat suspicious that Plato thought that if what he thought in reality contradicted each other, that means reality is wrong. He was a very strong rationalist. And empiricists, I think the original one was Aristotle, where he starts saying, you know what? Ideas are good, but we need to test them against actual observations of the natural world to confirm or deny their accuracy. And this is a debate that continues to this day, and I'm starting to see idealism in consciousness versus physicalism of consciousness is maybe just a small part of that larger debate, of that larger discussion. So I want to show you this. This is, I'm going to bring that in there. This is Susan Blackmore's book. It is Consciousness, a very short introduction. And look, I'm almost like a quarter of the way through. And it's excellent. If this is something, if you do want to get into discussions about consciousness with people from a philosophy background, I'm really happy with this so far. It's short and readable and uh, really sane and useful. So Susan, I've been a fan of Susan Blackmore for years. She's a great philosopher and ex parapsychologist. She has a good book about how she became disillusioned with parapsychology, and I haven't read it yet. I've only read segments, but I'm going to be getting that soon and going all the way through it. So what else we got? Oh yes, here's our consciousness in all its glory, and the mods, the people who run it are great. The people who post, they're a mixed bag. So I sometimes it is frustrating, and I do wonder if maybe some of my frustrations with Scott um, are a projection of my frustrations with some of the people who comment on these, and it's kind of it is frustrating, and I'm going to get into why in a minute. But first, let's actually go to the comment section and let's see what what my incredibly mature, angry comments say. Um, so my comment on this video is actually with 5 upvotes, it is the top one. So apparently I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I hope that it's starting a good discussion. I have a lot of respect for Scott Carney, and I don't want to be mean, but I think he was mean, and that's why I started this. So I probably would not have gone into the comments and started talking about the hard problem of consciousness, or even some of the issues with facilitated communication, what he is talking about. But he opened this can of worms because he said that he believes physicalists, materialists, people who don't believe in the hard problem of consciousness, he said that he didn't believe we were being 100% honest. And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm not being 100% honest? And this really, well, it's calling all materialists, including myself, liars. Like we're just trolls. We really inside ourselves, we really believe that, oh, of course consciousness is magic, but we're just being really we gotta mess with people, but we don't really believe that, right? It's the same kind of thing I hear from religious people versus non-believers. Religious people will say, oh, everybody truly in their hearts knows there's a God. And I've always found this incredibly insulting. You don't know what's in my heart. And to be so self-centered that you can't even entertain that somebody has a different opinion than you, I'm sorry, it's a real jerk move. It's arguing in bad faith, it's accusatory, and it's unnecessary. And that is essentially what I said. I'll do a little dramatic reading. I say, love your stuff, Scott, but you need to admit you have a history of gullibility for charlatans. I'll talk about that later, but that, I probably should not have gone for the jugular so early, but I was a bit triggered. I should not have mentioned that. If I can go back in time, I'd get rid of that. I'd just say, I love your stuff, Scott. um, sorry, I'm a jerk sometimes. Then I go a little more constructive. I say, I'm perfectly fine with you believing that facilitated communication might be real, even though it has been definitively proven not to be. And I'll go into some resources on that later. But this is my problem. I'm not seeing that tolerance coming in my direction, a staunch materialist, from you. Your aggressive tone toward materialists is ignorant, insulting, and unnecessary. If you don't want to be hypocritical, please extend the tolerance and respect that you desire to others. So, yeah, a little confrontational, but I felt like he was calling me a liar. Like I don't really believe in physicalism, that I'm just doing it just to be a troll, and not cool, man. Seriously, not cool. You have your right to believe whatever, but when somebody disagrees with you, not being able to at least entertain the concept that they could have a different idea and that they actually have to agree with you and they're lying, poorly done. Badly done, Scott. And most people, I wouldn't give a crap, but you could do better. You are an excellent researcher and writer and thinker, and I've seen your work. I've read your work. You are so good, and I guess my expectations are higher than what I would expect out of the average boob. You know, I would expect you to be a little more um, have a little more integrity. So this spawned 8 comments. The first one from him: maybe listen to what I'm saying more closely because you are not representing my position accurately. He's wrong, but again, the emotions are high here. I will not throw the first stone on that one. My comment was kind of jerky, and I regret that. So then I respond with a quote. I wish I could do like markdown quotes in YouTube comments, but I think our formatting is pretty limited. So I quote him, and I went into the transcript and I copy and pasted this out of the transcript. And specifically, what he said was, so I believe that anyone who says that materialism is the only way to understand consciousness is, well, they're not being 100% honest. And I think I paraphrased this earlier, and I think it's accurate. It was an accurate paraphrase. And I say, and then I put a fine point on it. How is this not calling me personally a liar? We don't know what consciousness is yet, but just because it is an unsolved mystery doesn't mean that we have to seriously entertain that it could be magic. And yeah, I think I put a fine point on it, and I do think that this was nicer. I wasn't doing any name calling. I tried to stick to the facts. So I'm calming down a little. Scott responds, "I'm not calling you personally a liar. You know, I think I just proved that you did. It, maybe it would be good if you went back and reworded that. If that was not your intention, maybe think of a different wording so you could say what you were trying to say without being so accusatory of people who disagree with you. But if that is what you take away, you should have a talk about how videos work. I'm not how videos. It doesn't make sense. I think maybe that was a autocorrect or something. It's probably not important. Maybe you didn't mean it like that. Are you saying that materialism is the only way to understand consciousness? Yeah, I am. Actually, no, there's no wishy-washy here. That is exactly how it works. Then you are unfortunately wrong on that, as it would be a statement of faith, not of science. We can both hold opposing views so long as we agree on the facts. The hard problem, I assume you are familiar, has not been solved. To suggest it has is inaccurate. Okay, a lot of problems here. You know what? Let me talk right now about them. Um, this is the I mentioned the hard problem, and this is where we're getting into it. We're talking about materialism or physicalism or functionalism or whatever ism in general rejects the hard problem, more or less, and idealists who staunchly believe in a hard problem. And this is a problem. The hard problem is the problem. He says the hard problem has not been solved. The issue is that materialists don't believe in the hard problem. We don't have to solve it. Okay? That's not on us. We are not the ones who defined the hard problem. We are not the ones saying there's a hard problem. Other people are, and then are putting the burden of proof on others to fix that. And no, I don't. When you come to me with a legitimate problem that is clearly defined and supported with evidence, then I'll answer it. The hard problem, in my opinion, and many others, is not that. It is not a legitimate scientific concept. I mean, so whether it's solved or not is irrelevant. It is an irrelevant question, and it is not important. In my opinion, that's what materialism is. So idealists have this problem of trying to corner materialists, saying, "Wow, what's the solution to the hard problem?" It's like that means nothing to me. Okay, I don't have to. You're not the boss of me. You're not my dad. Okay, so somebody else jumps in. Stephen Miller. I think of it as you only look at things from one point of view. You're likely to be wrong sometimes. He's not accusing you of intentionally being a liar. The the words that I quoted refute that clearly. Again, if Scott wants to reword it so that it is not clearly calling me a liar, perfectly fine. No problem with that. Um, as he is saying that there is a strong chance that you may be wrong. Again, this is retconning what was said. That was not what was said. I have what was said right here, and that isn't what it was. Again, maybe it was miscommunicated. Maybe it was worded poorly, but until it is reworded, stop pretending like he said something else. This is a problem with dealing with idealists. When they don't believe in evidence, they're free to believe whatever nonsense they want. So sometimes, and this is where it gets frustrating for me, is, they say you can't reason somebody out of an idea they didn't reason themselves into. Idealists are people who reject evidence. They do not care. They believe what they want to believe, and mostly what they do is just rhetoric, not science. And there's no better example than this. We all saw the statement, and now we all see the retcon of that statement, claiming that it was something else, even though we have it right in the transcript. Blah blah blah. Also, this looking at things from one point of view. There are accurate ways to look at things, and there are inaccurate ways. I suggest you pick the best way. You don't need to look at it a bad way. That's just a waste of time. And this whole "we all might be wrong," that's the rhetoric I'm talking about. That's unconstructive nonsense. So goodbye. Um, Scott answers back. The hard problem of consciousness is not unproven, it's a priori obvious. I'll come back to that in a minute. We don't understand how subjective experience rises out of matter/neurons. Agreed. We don't. Yet. If there is research I am unaware of, please send it my way. Until then, you are just espousing a belief in results that has never been shown or demonstrated. And then at this point, I'm like, this might not be constructive. So I did a quick Google and I answer many prestigious philosophers, notably Dennett, reject the hard problem. And this is where, again, if you're talking to philosophers, I found bring your isms and you start referencing people, especially if they're famous. Philosophers are all just authoritarians. If you can say that somebody prestigious is on your side, a famous person, they're ancient, they were at a fancy university, well, that usually just shuts them right up. And I'm trying to get better at that. I'm finding more people that agree with me, so then I could just name drop them and stop a lot of this nonsense in its tracks. But it is true, and uh, and I did go. We have the Wikipedia on the hard problem of consciousness over here, and I'm going to go through a few things there. Just after the last two things, there's a guy chimes in and agrees with me. I definitely had a knee-jerk reaction to the same quote you pointed out. I attributed his quote to the Dunning-Kruger effect. I'm guessing that the majority of PhDs who research and publish on consciousness are not in agreement, and that does seem to be the case. No real scientist would ever be happy with "and here magic happens." And I said a thing from Wikipedia, and it's wrong. I went back and read it again, and what they were saying was a little different. So let's hit that up. Now, in my opinion, the very least amount of research you should do is going to Wikipedia. If you want to do more, Wikipedia has references and you can start branching out from there. But really, all I want to look at is so many idealists come out with, like, they want to convince you that it is 100% agreed upon. The hard problem exists. Everyone agrees it's, as Scott said, a priori knowledge. Um, it is not, but we'll see. Just so real quick, this is a good article. I'm happy with it. It does. It seems to talk about all the different sides. And what I want to do is scroll down to paragraph 4, where it starts, the existence of the hard problem is disputed. And this is the thing that frustrates me so much, is that I would love to get into a healthy discussion with an idealist and really, butt heads and come up with great facts. But man, these guys come out of the gate. They cannot accept this fact that the existence of the hard problem is disputed. You cannot a priori assume that it is true. And if you do, there's nothing constructive that's going to come out of this conversation. And I'm like, oh yeah, you quote Wikipedia. Okay, but Wikipedia does have references. It lists some well-known philosophers and cognitive neuroscientists that uh, feel that the hard problem is legitimate. On the other hand, its existence is denied by philosophers. And I mentioned Dennett. He's very famous. Pigliucci, I just saw a great talk by him. He did a talk at, I think, a skeptics conference or something with Stephen Novella, and it was excellent. Metzinger, I've been reading a little about him. So, my mouse is dying. Let's fix that. So, again, the point is, it's not just me. It is not just me, some guy who doesn't know squat about philosophy, and I'm learning a lot of this right now for the first time. There are actual, well-known, credentialed, legitimate philosophers that say they don't think the hard problem is real. And again, I think this puts us in a great place for a debate, but you can't debate idealists because they already assume that they're true. That's really the frustrating thing. Now, down here it says in 2020, Phil Papers survey. A majority of the philosophers surveyed said they believed that the hard problem is a genuine problem, while 29.72% said that it does not exist. So about 62 philosophers say that, yeah, the hard problem is real. 30% of philosophers say no, and then there's some that are, I'm sure, meant they were undecided or whatever. Um, so again, truth is not a popularity contest. However, I do feel like this is concrete evidence to say this is far from a done deal. This is a long way from being unquestionably true. And if 30% of philosophers, and these are philosophers, these aren't scientists. Scientists are basically all empiricists, and they're almost always going to be physicalists, but these are pure philosophers. And it seems that 30% don't think that this is a legitimate question. And that's fine. All right? I don't have a problem with being in the 30%, but I do think that it makes it debatable. It does not make it absolutely a set problem. And there's some other things too. Yeah, this is pretty long. This is a good article. It talks a little more about these Phil paper studies. Uh, where's the 2021? The 2020 Phil paper survey. 52% of philosophers surveyed indicated they accept or lean towards physicalism. And 32% indicated they reject physicalism, and the rest were undecided. This is even more. This is telling us that a majority of surveyed philosophers are physicalists. And again, it doesn't prove it, but it does prove that there is room for debate. And do not dismiss physicalists as liars. Do not dismiss physicalists as people. I've seen people say, well, if it's true, how come so many philosophers disagree with it? It's like, well, a lot do, but a lot don't as well. So that's something I'm bringing into our consciousness. um, but anyhow, yeah. So that is hopefully that's a good discussion of what the hard problem is, where it is in the discussion, and the serious problem I see, not just Scott, but a lot of people that I talk to, have no room in their minds. If they are idealists, if you are not, you're a liar, you're stupid, you're insane. And that is not okay. That does not fit the evidence, and it's kind of a jerk thing to do. Again, I can forgive that. I'm often a jerk. But since I figure in my opinion, I have a lot of time for people who bring something to the table. They're smart, they're skilled. They have something of value. And I have time for people who are really nice. They're funny, they're fun to hang out with, they're really positive. And if you're one or the other, I'm cool with you. I can forgive the other one. If you're both, that's suspicious. I don't trust people who are both nice and intelligent. I think they're trying to hide something. And if you're neither, you can I don't have time for that nonsense. So I didn't really care about this very much, but since I opened this can of worms, this video was about facilitated communication, and it was frustrating to listen to, and I want to just give a quick rebuttal to what Scott said. So he was very open. He did not like people dismissing the telepathy tapes. He thought that there could be something there and that it should be looked into more closely. And a lot of people are disagreeing with him. And I think what he is missing is that facilitated communication. Let's see if we can pull a few quotes out of here. The first sentence: facilitated communication or supported typing is a scientifically discredited technique. We haven't even gotten through the first sentence yet. And bam, we're laying some truth down. Um, there is widespread agreement within the scientific community and among disability advocacy organizations that FC is a pseudoscience. Well, there's a second paragraph. Facilitated communication has been called the single most scientifically discredited intervention in all of developmental disabilities. Scott, I know you heard about this, the telepathy tapes, the way a lot of people have, and you came at it like a doe-eyed newborn. Oh, what is this brand new thing that I've never heard about? And I think a lot of people are in this same position. They don't know about the history. They don't know that this was already researched thoroughly 30 years ago and shown to be a scam. This is a grift, 100%. But people forget. So you bring the grift back after, after a certain amount of time and the fervor's gone down, and you present it as if it is something new. It is not something new. There is this, oh geez, yeah. You got some people getting sued, and where was this? Let's see, 1992. We've got a paper, 2012, 1997, 1992. Autistic method disputed. Researcher says child not helped. If you go back to the 90s, this is the last time this came about. And it was looked into. And we can't pretend that now just this recycled grift is somehow brand new. It is not. We already know. We have done the work. And Scott, personally, I'm speaking to you. You seem to have, and again, respect. The work that you did about the dangers of meditation, incredible. I used to be really into meditation. I kind of ended up thinking it was bunk and moved on. But the work that you did to expose a lot of the downsides and hazards of it, I've never read that anywhere else, and it is important. And for you to do that, I'm sure you still like meditation and support it. And to bring that out, it takes a lot of guts and it takes a lot of smarts. But then you see this, when I first heard about Scott, it was in the article about Andrew Huberman, and his sexual proclivities. And Scott shared an anecdote where Huberman asked him out to go camping and then ghosted him. And I relate to that. I think on both sides. Yeah, I'm not a very responsible person myself either. And and then Scott did a lot of work with Wim Hof, and now he's kind of spent all of this time discrediting him. And you see this pattern of falling into kind of a guru or a charlatan, becoming disillusioned with them, and then hey, Kitty. And then, coming clean and saying, hey, you know what, I made a mistake. I think some of these guys have some things to do. But at what point are you going to stop? When are you not going to fall for the next charlatan? There's something wrong with the process that you use to determine the legitimacy of somebody. And it has failed. You have documented failures of fully believing somebody is real and true and following them, and then realizing that they're full of it. And you need to ask yourself, what original mistake did I make? What did I miss? And I'm hearing you now, you have this very credulous attitude looking at the telepathy tapes. These are nonsense. They are, anybody could see they were bunk miles away. You could just go to Wikipedia and read about how this was already thoroughly debunked in the 90s. But you didn't. You made a video about how maybe it's real. You're supposed to be an investigative journalist. Why don't you do a little investigation and maybe ask yourself why it is that why you are so credulous, why you so easily fall for some of these new age quacks? Because you know what? Fool me once, okay. But now you've been fooled multiple times. And now these telepathy tapes are doing it again. You can do better. You are an intelligent person with integrity, and I respect your work. And it's frustrating to see you support a grift, an obvious grift, okay? A painfully obvious grift. And yeah, maybe it's real this time, sure. And maybe the email you got from a Nigerian prince is real. Maybe this is the real Nigerian prince. Now, the 10 I got before, those were fake Nigerian princes. But you know what? You got to keep an open mind, right? So please stop. Just, you, I guess my point is misinformation is easy to create. Grifts are easily recyclable. Nonsense can just come flowing out when you want it to. Good information is hard. It takes research and verification and double checking. And there is I can't remember, there's a law or something like that where it says that the effort required to debunk misinformation is an order of magnitude larger than what it costs to create it. And we can't get stuck playing their game. Misinformers can just flood us, can just drown us in misinformation. And we only have so much time. We only have so much time in our lives, and we have to focus where our minds, where our thoughts, where our time needs to be spent. And if we keep focusing our time and thoughts on obvious, disproved misinformation, we will never ever be able to get to good stuff. Because good information, it's a very small amount of total information. And this is one of the great ways to find it is that, if you gather a lot of information, the accurate stuff is going to be very similar. So you're going to see it as a group. The nonsense, well, we're all wrong in our own unique snowflake ways. So the nonsense is going to be all over the place. And we can use that to separate what's good from what's bad. But if you go through and you don't screen your information and you do not quickly filter out the obvious bunk, you're going to be stuck in a big bucket of misinformation for the rest of your life with very little hope of being able to find a gem in there. You need a filter. You need a way to quickly dismiss something like the telepathy tapes. And that is what you're doing. You are looking down on people who are quickly dismissing an obvious grift. And I think that is really unhealthy for you, and I think it's really unhealthy for everyone except for the grifters. And I know you said you contacted a guy and he was a jerk, and yeah, he was, and that sucks that that happened. But it is maybe is obvious. It gets frustrating. It gets frustrating having to debunk the same thing over and over and over and over again. You should just have to disprove something once and then move on. Otherwise, we will be stuck disproving the same thing for the rest of our lives. And that's not how I want to live. You know, I got better things to do with my time. Hey, Kathy. Want to say hello? Hello, guy.